Hello, my friends. Hello, it's Matthew Street. Welcome to my channel. As always, I truly appreciate you being here. And folks, wow, sometimes life just doesn't seem fair. It just doesn't seem like things go the way they should go, as it were, in many different facets of life. But certainly, if you're a music fan, and I know you are as I am, in music, it happens all the time. You go, where is the justice? Where is the fairness? How can some music, which in my mind and your mind probably can be total crap, and make it and become huge and go on to sell millions and go gold and platinum, and then other music comes out that is so deserving, or at least just as deserving as some of the music over the decades that has gotten gold and platinum status all over the radio, top 40, culturally significant to teenagers and young people. How does it happen that some music just doesn't click? And it should, it deserves to. And in many cases, this music is better than what's in the top 40, than what's being played by the teenagers and the high school kids and the college kids, and it's in the public consciousness. It's so much better. It's so more deserving of accolades and high praise, and yet somehow it slips by the wayside. It just doesn't quite get there. It frustrates me, folks. It's frustrated me my whole life. Thankfully, many of the artists, as I'm sure you would agree with, many of the artists you love, they do make it. I mean, I'm a Beatles fan. Who's bigger than the Beatles? I'm an Elvis fan. Who's bigger than Elvis? Who's had more popularity than Elvis? And I could go on and on about so many artists I love, and I'm sure many that you love, that have made it, that are big. They've had accolades and awards and top hit singles and albums, and that's wonderful. But think about the many artists you know, musical artists, that you love, that deserve to be right up there and just didn't make it. They just didn't quite get to that level. I'm sure you have many you could mention, and go ahead and mention them below. But I'm going to talk about one today that really bugs me, because this artist, and he's had accolades, he's had success. I'm sure if you sat down and interviewed him and talked to him, he'd say, you know what, I'm really happy with my life. He's got a wonderful family. He's just had a wonderful life all around. But even musically, he's done everything he wanted to do as far as creating his art, putting it out there, having people enjoy it. He has a solid fan base. His shows are always, do very well. And I'm talking about Marshall Crenshaw, folks. One of my favorite musical artists of all time. I've talked about him many times over the years, being here on YouTube. And Marshall came on the scene in April of 1982 when he released his self-titled debut, Marshall Crenshaw. Folks, I don't care what anyone says out there, this is one of the best albums, not only of the 80s, this is in the top of all-time albums from the 1980s, but it could be one of the top, and I think it's been ranked by certain outlets as one of the top albums, like the top 100, top 500, whatever you want to say, albums of all time, certainly debuts. Marshall Crenshaw's first album is a classic. It's an absolute gem and a classic, and I love it. From April of 82 onward, I've been a fan of this man. 41 years. Loved him. I have everything by him. I've seen him live. I can't even count anymore how many times I've seen Marshall live. I've seen him even live recently where he's fronting the Smithereens. So go see the Smithereens, and you could see Marshall fronting them. I've seen him numerous times. I've met him several times. I've had pictures taken with him a few times. He has signed albums for me. He's so giving. He's so agreeable and happy to be with the fans, and pleasant and personable. So if you're a fan of Marshall, try to get to see him live. Try to meet him. He'll sign an album. He'll take a picture with you. He's a great guy. He's just a regular, great, down-to-earth guy. But he put out that album, and there were high expectations from Warner Brothers with that album. Marshall signed a 5-album deal with them. And it just didn't happen. It's like the album, I think, reached number 50 on the Billboard charts. I think to this day, it's just barely scraping. It's close to be getting gold status. 40 years it's taken, but it's finally getting close to be certified as gold. Can you imagine? This is an album that should have sold in the millions. It should have been bigger than many of the other albums that came out that year, 1982, or just as big. It should have been one of the biggest albums of the 80s. And in my mind, artistically, it is. It is. It is better than a lot of the stuff that made top 10 number one in the 1980s. This is better. Absolutely. There's no question. It just didn't get there. Well, when that happened, when that album came out, it didn't quite do as well as Warner Brothers, Marshall, or the fans had thought. There was like a rush. We got to get out another album. We got to get another one out there because they knew the talent they had in Marshall. He had a 5-album deal with Warner Brothers. So they said, let's get another one out there. So within the next year, only a year and 2 months later, 14 months later, he released his follow-up album, Field Day, in June of 1983. And folks, I got to tell you, as a fan of Marshall Crenshaw, I love this album just as much as the first album. Okay, they're both different, but they're both just as good. I love both. Fabulous. And if you're a big fan of this one, because you've just been into it for whatever, this is the one that gets all the attention, and you've never gotten into this one, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to get Field Day. You need to check it out. You need to dive into it both feet. This is a fabulous, fabulous album. Now, on this album, it was a little different than the first one, where the first one was more stripped down, guitar, bass, drums, singing, background singing, and that's it. Minimal production. And it was such a charming album and loved by many, many people. This one's a little different. The production is different. It's more produced, a bigger production, more powerful production, more explosive production. He went with Steve Lillywhite. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Steve Lillywhite as a producer, but let me just say this. XTC, U2, Simple Minds, The Stones, The Talking Heads, Peter Gabriel, Morrissey. Who else has he worked with? The Dave Matthews Band in more recent times, Fish. Steve Lillywhite is one of the most famous producers of all time. Steve Lillywhite produced this album. Now, when that was first happening, I remember as a young fan of Marshall, when they said Steve Lillywhite was coming on board and he had worked with U2 and XTC and people like that, people were afraid, like, oh, no, Marshall, after this, don't get into your Sgt. Pepper phase too soon. That was the big term back then. Marshall, don't jump from Hard Day's Night to Sgt. Pepper in one leap with Steve Lillywhite. Well, he really didn't. Although the production on this is, like I said, more powerful, more explosive, bigger. The drum sound is much bigger. And it's basically still just guitar, bass, and drums with some overdubs. But the way it's produced, it just sounds bigger. It just, the bigger wall of sound, the more powerful, explosive sound is on this album. But it's basically the same songs, same style of songwriting and playing instrumentation that's on this is on this. It's just the production is just totally will blow your mind. And I love it. I love the leap from this to this because the songs, folks, on the first album, which are so loved and beloved, the songwriting is just as good, if not better, on Marshall's second album, Field Day. I absolutely love it. Now, the reason I'm doing this video today is, yes, to sing the praises of Field Day and have you go out and get it right away. But I am such a fan of this album that I just got a recent new 40th anniversary edition of Field Day. And I want to share my love for getting that edition with you, tell you all about it. So maybe you'll want to go out and get the new 40th anniversary edition of this fabulous album, one of the best albums of the 80s, in my opinion, one of my favorite albums of all time. Now, the original pressing is good. Marshall never liked the cover. He hated the cover. He was on vacation with his wife and his brother, who was the drummer in his band, Robert Crenshaw. They're on vacation, and Warner Brothers puts together this cover without Marshall's approval. Marshall had remembered this photo session, and it's taken in front of his old high school, Berkeley High School in Michigan. That's where the picture was taken. And he did a series of great pictures. And he says, he always maintained, Warner Brothers picked the worst picture they could have used for the cover they selected while he was away on vacation. He came back and he was livid. He said, no, that's not going to be the cover. And Warner Brothers started hemming and hawing. Oh, no, we can't. If we try to change the cover now, Marshall, it's going to delay the album release by 3 weeks, and we can't do that because you're going on tour and the timing and all this. And so Marshall relented, and he let them put out this cover. And he's never, for 40 years, been happy with it. He hates it. He hates the picture of himself here. And so that's one thing about this first only original pressing of Field Day. He hates it. It's a single disc, 10 songs. It's on regular Warner Brothers records. Like I said, produced by Steve Lillywhite, mastered by Greg Calby. And, you know, it's kind of your typical album of the era. It's not completely 180-gram vinyl, but it's flexy a little bit, you know. And the sound is good. I like the sound on it. I've always liked the original sound. Now, that's that one. Get it if you don't have it. CD, streaming, you can get the original version. In 2017, 6 years ago, they released a 2-disc expanded edition of Field Day, including a 12-inch EP with it. And this is that edition I got back in 2017. Now, you may be able to still find this. This is a fabulous, fabulous edition. All right, came with a very nice, I'm just going to show you all the different editions leading up to the brand new one I just got. It has a nice hype sticker. Now, this 2017 expanded edition has a new cover. They took the cover from Marshall's Whenever You're on My Mind single, which he always liked the cover of that better than his original album cover, and he approved this as the cover of the 2017 expanded edition. 2-disc. Like I said, the 12-inch remix, US remix EP is on here. The sound pops a bit more than the first original edition, a little more. Very similar in the sound, but overall, it does pop a bit more. It hits you a bit more, but not too different. I'm not going to fib to you about sound and say, oh, this is night and day. No, it's pretty close to the original. Just for me, it pops a bit more. That was the term that jumped into my head. 100% analog remastering by Kevin Gray did the remastering on this edition. It's part of Warner Brothers and Integration Records, I believe they're called. I'll show you that down there. All right, the cover's very similar to the original's cover. Much more glossy, though. This 2017 edition is very glossy, high gloss, very thick cardboard. It has the gatefold. It took the inside sleeve of this original, they made it into the gatefold. So this would have been, this is the sleeve on the original vinyl. You would have pulled the record, the vinyl out of on the original. But on this 2017 reissue, it's on the gatefold. And then the vinyl is basically in 2 little things like this on Warner Brothers and Integration Records, it's called, I believe. Interpretation Records, I'm sorry, Interpretation Records, Integration, whatever. And it's really good because you get the entire original album. Like I said, it pops a bit more, sounds good, 180-gram thick black vinyl, and I absolutely adore it. And Marshall officially approved this album. But like I said, it also has the bonus album, which is the US Remix 45 RPM EP. Side 1 has Our Town, For Her Love, Monday Morning Rock, and Little Sister, the old Elvis song, live. And then you get side 2 is an entire side of an extended mix of For Her Love, which is one of my favorite songs on the album. So this was a great addition as well, with a nice hype sticker. Well, here we are only 6 years later, and we get another edition of Field Day, folks, with a whole brand new cover approved by Marshall Crenshaw himself from that same photo session. This is probably what he would have wanted originally. Here is the 2023 2-disc copy, 40th anniversary of Field Day. And I love this cover. This is a beautiful cover. This should have been the original cover. This is fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Just came out. Here's the back. You get the original disc, 10 songs, and the second disc, side 3, is you get Our Town and Monday Morning Rock TV tracks, meaning instrumental only. What Time Is It? A guide vocal version. A unreleased song called Jungle Rock. And then you get an unreleased or unfinished song called Durham Town. And then you get that version, I believe the live version of Little Sister again. Okay. Inner gatefold is beautiful. Nice pictures of Marshall in the recording process of the album. I saved the shrink, so here are the 2 hype stickers you get. This edition I got is special from Barnes & Noble. So there's that one. Can you see it okay? And here's the special Barnes & Noble edition. It's on a colored, limited edition colored vinyl. So if you want this edition, go to Barnes & Noble. You might be able to still get it, or you might have to get the standard black edition. One sleeve, I put them in poly-lined sleeves, but you get a nice interview with Marshall about the album here, all the credits, picture on the back, more beautiful pictures of Marshall and the guys on the other, more stuff to read about the bonus tracks, and then look at the beautiful vinyl. I'm going to show it to you, and then I'll be out of here, folks. Look at that. It's on a swirlish blue-gray vinyl, or as it's called on the, what's it say on there? Silver with blue metallic swirl. Silver and blue metallic swirl on Yep Rock Records. Okay, so Yep Rock is involved in this release. They've had some great releases with the Rubidoos and other bands, but there's that one. Okay, and I've listened to the sound of this, folks. The sound is excellent, okay? It's a little more, it seems a little more separation than on the other 2 versions, the 2017 and the original pressing. Like, I hear a better separation of instruments and vocals, slightly. Like I said, all 3 of these are great sounding. They're not so dissimilar, like, oh, one's so much better than the other. They're all great in their own way. Slight differences. The 2017 one seems to pop in general more than the original pressing, but the original pressing sounds great to me. This brand new 2023 40th anniversary edition just seems to have better separation. You can just more clarity with hearing everything, okay? It just sounds a little better to me overall, but that's just me. It's being remastered again by Greg Calby, who did the original mastering on the original release. So it's not a remix, it's a remastering again. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful album, folks. I can't stress enough what a great album Field Day is, was, and always will be. And Marshall, to put it in a nutshell before I leave, folks, Marshall's always said about this album, it's just a simple album about young people in love and having a great time together. So, folks, if you've ever had those feelings of young love in your life and having that wonderful feeling of being in love with that person, that first love you ever had, and the happy, fun, great times you had together, listen to Field Day. You'll love it. You'll love what he's singing about, what he wrote about, the musicality of it, everything. It's just a beautiful, beautiful album. So that's it, folks. Field Day. The original pressing, 1983, 2017, we got the reissue with a whole new cover, and now we got the brand new 40th anniversary edition. It just came out. You can get it everywhere, folks. CD, vinyl, double vinyl here, and it's also black vinyl, but you can get the limited edition silver and blue metallic at Barnes & Noble. That's it, folks. I've gone 18 minutes here. I know many of you have bailed, but for those of you that are interested in Marshall Crenshaw, I hope you're still here, and I hope you'll check out Field Day, one of my favorite albums of all time. Bye.